droit, beneath the stars and shine, under the moonlight sky, and we can dance all night. Open your curtains wide, beneath the stars and shine, under the moonlight sky, and we can dance all night. All night. Hey, I see a pretty bib, that's a burning boot.
Hi guys, so today I'm here with a book review for you, and this review is of my latest buddy read with Rob from Rob's Reading Roundup. I think this is our third buddy read now, and we read Burned by Ellen Hopkins. I'll also leave a link to Rob's channel down below, so go check him out. So yeah, we read this together, and I think I've managed to read this in 4 days, I want to say it was 4 days. I got through this really quickly. I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't get into it, but I will get to that in a minute. I'll read you the blurb, and it says, "I felt angry, frustrated. I felt I didn't belong. Not in my church, not in my home, not in my skin. Raised in a religious yet abusive family, Patton von Stratton starts asking questions about God, a woman's role, sex, love. She experiences the first stirrings of passion, but when her father catches her in a compromising position, events spiral out of control. Patton is sent to live with an aunt in the wilds of Nevada to find salvation and redemption. What she finds instead is love and acceptance until she realises that her old demons will not let her go." So I've heard a lot about Ellen Hopkins, and I've had, I think, 4 Ellen Hopkins books on my shelves for ages. I must have had this book on my shelf for at least 2 years, but never picked it up. And I've heard a lot in particular about Burned, and I know it's a lot of people's favourites of hers, so I was excited to get to it. What made me worry that I wouldn't get into it was the fact that it's written in verse, which is not necessarily a problem, but the last book that I read in verse was Run the Game by Jason Myers, and I did not enjoy that book at all. So I think in my head that maybe had something to do with what made me hold off on reading Burned for so long, but I'm so glad that doing a buddy read with Rob pushed me to pick it up, because it might have been another 2 years before I picked this up if it wasn't for that. The verse actually is very easy to understand. My mum actually picked this up. I'd put it down, I think, to go get a drink or something, and she picked it up and she just flicked to a random page, and she was like, "How the hell do you know what's going on? I can't understand anything." What I will say is you can't really do that. You can't flick to a random page and pick up the story. It only really flows if you read it from start to finish. That way you get used to the verse, you get used to the author's writing and how she puts things across, as well as the character and how Patton thinks. She has quite specific thought patterns, and you pick up on those. But you have to, I would say you definitely have to read it from them. Most people start a book at the beginning, but my mum will flick through a book to see what it's about. But you can't, I don't think you really pick it up halfway through. Like, you really do have to start it from the beginning and stick with it. But it flows really nicely. Character-wise, I loved Patton. I think that's how you say her name. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I'm going with. I really loved her. I really felt for her. She's raised in a Mormon family. She is the oldest girl, and she sees like her dad hitting her mother, but it's all sort of very much accepted. There's no sort of repercussions, so it's kind of the norm. Then one day she's out shooting. She likes to shoot cans for like sport. She feels like it's something that she's good at. She enjoys it. It's something that she does for herself, and she sort of stumbles across this group of, I think it's 4, and she suddenly has they're not friends, but she's sort of hanging around with people that are different, and she sees another life, and it's something that she enjoys. She's caught in a compromising position, like it says in the blurb, and her dad sends her to live with her aunt that she's never met, and this aunt shows her a different side to life, and her aunt is amazing. She basically, I think it's like a ranch or a farm type setting that she lives on. She lives alone. She handles like all these cattle and everything sort of on her own, but she teaches Patton that love isn't actually destructive. It's special when you have it, and it's worth fighting for. And I liked finding out more about her aunt and her own aunt's tragic sort of backstory, and seeing Patton meet someone and fall in love. This book is very emotionally charged. There are so many points in this book where I sort of caught my breath, because some of the things that are happening, the way Patton sort of tells them, they're quite straightforward. Like, you see like a split in the book. At the beginning it's the norm, things that happen that's the norm, they're not really commented on. But as she grows and develops as a character, you see her be more disturbed by things that are happening, and you really feel for her and her younger siblings. The portrayal of her mother was also very interesting. There are times when you can't stand her mother, that you think, why is the mum not doing more to help her children? But then you feel for the mum as well, because she's trapped by her situation. The love story between Patton and Ethan, I loved them together. I thought they were adorable. Things spiraled with them very quickly. I would say that like there wasn't much sort of build up between their relationship. It was kind of instantaneous. Like, I don't 100% know why they were drawn to each other. They just seemingly were. That would probably be my only gripe, is that I wish that they had had more sort of time drawing together. You see that more. But I still absolutely love them together when they were together. Like I said, this book is really, really emotionally charged. I still haven't recovered from it. As I was getting towards the end, I could feel sort of the tragedy building, and I almost didn't want to finish reading it, because I knew that my heart was going to be broken. I knew that horrible things were going to happen, and I didn't think that I would be able to take it. And it really did. It really did break my heart. Like, it sounds awful to say that, you know, books don't really move me, but for a book to make me cry is a big deal, because it makes me sound heartless, but I'm not. But for it to actually physically move me to tears is quite a feat. And I lost my breath with this book, and I said to my mum, I said, don't speak to me for a while, because it ended in a way that I didn't want it to end. But at the same way, like, everything about it was beautifully written. I couldn't help but fall in love with Ellen Hopkins' writing, so I didn't want to stop reading, but I also did want to stop reading, because I just knew that I wouldn't recover from what I was reading, and I didn't. I'm still not over the ending now. Over like a week later, I'm still not over this. And I actually was texting Ryan from Ryan Reads Books and Charlie from Duvet Day Devours for like emotional support, as well as tweeting Ellen Hopkins and Rob on Twitter, because I wasn't ready for it. And Ellen Hopkins said to me, she said, how could you ever be emotionally ready for the end of this book? And she was 100% right. There is no being ready for the end of this book. There is just the end of this book. And I was so sad to not only see it end, but also to read that ending. There is a sequel called Smoke, but I'm scared to pick that up, because what else can she throw at me with these characters? I'm not sure. I will find out. I will read it, but I don't think I'm emotionally ready enough to pick up another Ellen Hopkins soon. I do think that I will definitely be reading her work. I think she has an amazing way of writing and an amazing way of telling a story. And I'm really not sure how to say her name, Peyton. I'm going with Peyton as a character, and I'm really interested to see what other characters she can bring to life and what tragedies she can inflict upon them. But I 100% recommend reading this book. It's unlike anything else that I've ever read, and I love it for that. I love it for being something different for me. I loved reading it with Rob, and I saw him tweet, I think this morning I saw it, that he also enjoyed this, so I'm really looking forward to watching his review and seeing his thoughts. But I'm glad we both enjoyed it. So glad we picked this book, because otherwise it might have been absolutely ages until I picked this book up, and that would have been a real shame, because I'm absolutely in love with it, despite the fact that it's torn my heart out and stamped on it. But yeah, 5 out of 5. I was torn between 4.5 and a 5 out of 5. I'm still sort of sitting on that fence, but I think it leans more towards a 5 out of 5 than a 4 out of 5. So yeah, that's my review of Burned by Ellen Hopkins. Have any of you guys read this book? Have any of you guys wanted to read this book? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Happy reading.